Have you ever been so mad that you've just completely lost your cool with your kids? There's a name for that.
Yo, watching out for Daddy. Hey, that's my dad.
Now, the thing that I want to talk about today is a moment that I think every parent universally understands. And I've heard it being called a whole bunch of things, but recently I've heard the perfect term for it: the snappening. Now, the snappening can happen in various ways. For me, quite often it's when you've spoken and you've spoken and you've spoken and you've asked your kids not to do a certain thing or to do a certain thing, usually 3 or 4 times, and then the fifth time is when things get serious. It's like whatever's going on in my head really resembles that moment in Infinity War, Avengers Infinity War, when Thanos does the click. Yeah, that goes on in my head. Just something snaps, everything goes white, and then when I come back to reality, I've lost my voice from like screaming too much. I actually don't scream that much, and it doesn't happen that often anymore, but I can feel it coming. And for you, maybe it's something different. Like, it could be just that there's a lot of noise being generated and you're getting a lot of questions being asked all over and you're getting stimulated too much and people are touching you and grabbing you, and then all of a sudden you just... What I found really surprising as I've become more experienced as a parent is that the snappening still happens, but I've become more in control of it. So as all of the chaos is happening, I'm using that ultimate frustration to be direct and calm and actually get whatever has to happen done. Yeah, okay. Definitely much better in the front yard because it is sweltering out the back. Weird. Anyway, one of the biggest things I do that really helps me avoid the snappening from occurring in the first place is to be very clear about what's about to happen and the consequences if that thing doesn't happen. So, hey, my boys, you need to pick up your shoes. Okay, boys, you still haven't picked up your shoes. If you don't pick up your shoes, I'm going to take away a toy, or I switch off the TV, or I make you stay in your room for 5 minutes, or something bad is going to happen if you don't pick up your shoes. Hey boys, you haven't picked up your shoes. Now the thing that I said was going to happen is happening. Hit the road, Jack. I find that doing things that way really helps me feel a bit more in control because ultimately, I think the snappening happens when you don't feel like you have any control. You know, that moment where you've tried everything, you've said everything you've had to say, and you feel like, oh my word, these kids are not going to listen unless I completely explode. That's right there is prime real estate for the snappening. So the best way to avoid it completely is to maintain your control and to do the things that help you stay in control. Sometimes you actually just have to take yourself out of the room. Like, if you feel it coming and you know that you've said everything you had to say and you've tried to maintain a sense of control, maybe what you need to do is walk into the other room, take several deep breaths, and stay calm. I find it's helpful just to tell my wife, look, I can't deal with these kids anymore, and I need you to do something, or just to take them away, or to talk to them, because I have had enough. I think that when I say something like that, she knows that I'm almost at the point of no return, and I've already built up enough trust with her that she knows that it's probably the kids pushing my buttons. So we try to work through that. But what I'm about to say might be a bit controversial, and I'm not sure if everyone agrees with that, and I'm not sure if I will agree with this in 5 years' time. But a little part of me thinks that maybe the snappening needs to happen sometimes for kids to actually listen to you. Like, sometimes kids need to see that what they're doing affects you and makes you upset and sad and angry, for them to realize that their actions have real world consequences. So maybe if the snappening happens occasionally, that's not a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe? And maybe it depends a lot on what actually happens during the snappening. Like, if you're going to be doing something that you're going to regret later while you're losing your cool, then yeah, maybe the snapping shouldn't happen at all. Maybe it's not worth it, and maybe you have to maintain control. You know, like if you're going to be swearing at your kids, if you're going to be showing your kids bad behavior, if you're going to be modeling terrible things to your children, then this should probably be avoided altogether. But if the snapping gives you an opportunity to show your kids how to deal with anger effectively, like how to channel it and how to express it clearly and with gusto and with passion without hurting anyone's feelings, without physically hurting someone, that might be a good thing, right? Maybe? I feel like I'm doubting myself with this one. The last thing we really have to think about when it comes to the snapping is what happens afterwards. Because your kids have misbehaved and misbehaved and misbehaved. You've lost your cool, lost control, maybe blown up a bit. Now what? I think the worst thing you could probably do is pretend like it never happened. I think a decent conversation very soon after the event has to take place, where you sit down with them, you explain why you got upset, you make it very, very clear why you were upset with them, and maybe even apologize if you have to. And let me be honest, that is the part that I struggle with the most. Having to apologize to my children because I got angry because they misbehaved. Like, in my anger, red, frustration brain, that doesn't make any sense. But now that I'm calm, it does make a lot of sense. You want your kids to see you apologizing for getting too angry, if you did get too angry. So on the one hand, you want to use the snapping as an opportunity to model better behavior for your kids by showing them that their actions have real world consequences to people's feelings, and also by showing them how they should be reacting when they get angry. So that's important. But on the other hand, you also have to give yourself room to breathe, because you're human and sometimes things upset you. And sometimes you don't have the emotional resources to deal with all the crap that kids put you through. Yeah, I think I'm ending this video with more to think about than when I started it. So I'm not sure if this has been helpful at all, and I'm really sorry if it hasn't. But as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I would love to know in the comments below, how do you deal with the snapping? The moments that you lose control, or how do you avoid it completely? Like, what tips and tricks do you have to do that? It's really useful for the rest of us to see how you cope, because then maybe we can all learn from your experience, which would be super helpful. It would also be super helpful if you go to the website and subscribe. Go to www.afrodaddyonline.com and subscribe. That way you get all of the new content first, and you also get a very secret newsletter that I only send to my subscribers. It's a bit more personal, a bit more like, hey, this is what's going down with us, my family. And in the newest newsletters, I'm putting in a little bit of information about how I do all of the Aphrodaddy stuff. So how do I podcast? How do I make videos? How do I blog? How do I create all this content that I'm doing? And maybe there's some stuff for you to learn there as well. So a lot of good reasons for you to subscribe. The number one is that it'll make me really happy. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for watching this video. I'll chat to you soon. Aphrodaddy out.
You're watching Aphrodaddy. Hey, that's my dad.